Hello, welcome. It's Lori. This is the Intuitknit podcast. It's October the 17th, Tuesday, and welcome if you haven't been here before. It's a podcast about knitting, spinning, and sewing sometimes. Coming to you from a place north of Toronto in Canada, and it's nice to have you here with me. I don't know what number episode this is. I think it's 26 or 27. I'll have to check. But anyway, thanks for joining me again. It's been a while since I had an episode. But I just thought I would greet the fall with a new one and let you know what I've been up to. Thanks to everybody who's messaging me on Instagram. I can be found on Ravelry and Instagram as Intuitknit. And I welcome your comments, good and bad. I hope that you can hear me. Sometimes the volume on my tablet it's not compatible with every device that you might be listening on. So my apologies up front. Sometimes it's better with earbuds, so you might want to try that. So it's a beautiful fall day, and I'm counting down the days to when I make my trip to the Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Festival, as many of you are. I think some of you have already landed in the States. I saw a few postings on Instagram, Sockmatician and Patricia of P4Chan on the Knitography podcast. She's, I think, on the other side of the ocean. So, I was looking at the weather. I'm really hoping that Kate of Kate Hawthorne Cottage Craft can make her trip uneventfully. I know that there's been really some bad storms up in near Ireland, so I'm hoping that all went well. Today I'm just drinking out of this cup that I just got not too long ago. I went shopping in Toronto, and there's this really lovely pottery store. If you ever do get to Toronto and you want to find some pottery, beautiful pottery, there's a place on Mount Pleasant Avenue. It's called Pleasant Pottery, which is really appealing. And the reason I like that store is because they have artisans that are going there to learn the craft, as well as people, of course, that have mastery over it. So you get quite a selection, and I find that sometimes people that are new at a craft have some very lovely approaches, intentional and not intentional. So I quite enjoy that. But I'm just drinking water today. I was thinking earlier, and you'll see why I'm saying this, but I was thinking earlier I should put some vodka in here and call it a Vodcast, because I've had a few fails with my knitting lately and trying to keep my spirits up so that I won't carry it over to the festival when I go, because I have great intentions of enjoying myself. So cheers, everybody. It's just water. Okay, so I have a few finished projects and a few projects on the go, and I guess I'll just start in with some of the things that I've finished. And I've been stash diving lately because I want to cleanse my conscience, if you like, with any purchases that I make at Rhinebeck. So I'm trying to go through my yarn stash and clear up things that have been there further than memory can capture, I'm sure. And some of these yarns, I don't even know what they were, because the ball bands have, met their demise long before I got knitting on them. So anyway, so this is a shawl that I started, and it really started out as a shawl pattern called the Fireside Amber shawl. But in my increasingly problematic, intuitive way, I start out with a pattern and then either lose my focus or lose my intention, but I start to go off the rails with it. And sometimes it's a stitch pattern that is not particularly enjoyable for me, so I do change it, and it's all personal, so it's nothing to do with the pattern. It's just that I found it probably better for my state of mind to change it. So this originated as the Fireside Amber shawl, and I knit it in some very bright colors, which if over time your tastes change, that's what's happened to me, because I don't think I would have chosen these yarns had I been shopping today. But for whatever reason, I picked up these yarns, I think at a festival at some point in time, maybe 10 years ago, and decided to start out knitting the shawl. So we don't have much fall color here at the moment, unfortunately. We've kind of gone from summer to some very cold nights, but a lot of the leaves here aren't changing in their usual way. So this is kind of picking up the slack in that way, that I'm making up for it in this shawl. So yeah, there's a mixture of sort of a lattice work to it, and it's actually a mixture of two skeins, and you can see where it changes from this sort of stripy effect to more of a mottled effect here. And yeah, it's quite a long shawl. I wasn't quite sure when to stop it, since I'd actually stopped following the pattern at one point in time, but yeah, it's very bright colors, so almost neon, I guess, if you like, but it's a mixture of I put some garter stitch in where it wasn't really called for in the pattern, just because I got kind of tired of the stockinette stitch, but it blocked out pretty well. And so I guess if I was wearing it, I'm styling it, I might wear it that way. It's quite poofy. It's probably a DK weight yarn that I was using, so I think I'll wear it with a jean jacket maybe, and have it just like that. So yeah, it seems to work for me, so I'll add it to my growing pile of shawls. Sometimes nice, depending on your mood, to select something that kind of coincides with how you're feeling, for sure. Yeah, so that worked out well. And I belong to a spinning group. We meet every month on a Saturday. We used to meet at a community center, but the regulations changed, and so we were no longer able to meet there. Now we meet at someone's home. She lives in a rural area north of here, and it's lots of fun. We get together with 10 other spinners, and we chatter and enjoy all our projects, do some show and tell, and help each other out very often, because there's somebody there that has great mastery over how the spinning wheels work and how they can be fixed if there's something that's gone amiss with them. And so it's been great that way. So I was fortunate to meet somebody who was a long-standing member of that spinning group, but unfortunately she's become quite frail in her age, and so she had to leave the group and go to a retirement home. And so because of that, I think a lot of her spinning equipment and probably some of her stash was farmed out and distributed amongst people in our group, which we were happy to get as a memory of her, and because she was quite an accomplished spinner too. And so I was able to get some balls of yarn, which I don't really know what the breed was, but it spun up to be quite rustic in its when I plied it together. She had spun singles, and I had tried to ply them together. I'm not sure I was very successful, because I think I mistakenly spun them in the improper twist for the way that they were spun. But even though they were sort of tangling up and becoming quite like high energy because the spin was tight, I managed to knit them up into some hand warmers. So I made these 2 hand warmers, and I used some of my colored hand spun to complete them, and I quite liked the way they turned out. They were quite rustic, and so what I did was, I don't know if this is a blasphemy, but I took some hair conditioner and dissolved it in water, and they gave them a good soak, and now they're quite wearable, because I don't think before I could have worn them for long periods of time. But yeah, I quite like them. And you know, many times you're wearing a jacket that has a very loose cuff, and on those cold days, the cold air sneaks up through the cuff. So these are perfect, because then I can close the gap, you know, between my jacket and my clothing. And sometimes if I'm wearing a 3/4 length sleeve, it can sort of keep me warm despite that. So yeah, I quite like them. And of course, it's a mindless thing, because I just cast on and just intuitively kind of knit them up. But I do like the colors, and when I'm driving along in my car, I'm often looking at my hands and admiring my wrist warmers. So yeah, if you have any little pieces of sentimental value, as I did, or maybe you have some beautiful hand spun that isn't big enough to make a whole garment, try some wrist warmers. They're really fun, and you can practice any ferrule you want, or any patterns that come to mind. It's a good project. So I wanted to show you as well. I told you at the last podcast that I had done the Lush cardigan by Tin Can Knits, and this will be my Rhinebeck sweater this year for 2017. I made it out of Debbie Bliss Cashmere Merino blend, DK weight, and also some Knit Picks tweed. And so here's how it turned out. I did have to make some sizing adjustments. I'm having a bit of a sizing crisis lately, I think, because I'm not quite sure sometimes whether I should be knitting a larger size. And I've tried to learn everything I can about negative ease and positive ease. But sometimes the sizing is such that maybe a pattern is given in small, medium, large, and then on the next sizing it would be large, extra large, and extra, extra large. And because I'm large, I'm not sure which one sometimes to follow, because based on how much ease you want, it's a little bit confusing. So anyway, what I did with this one, as I discovered it may not be as big as I wanted it for the bust, was that I had to increase it and add a few more stitches when I joined this lace pattern. But I think it turned out quite nicely. And it's a 3/4 length sleeve, and it's very soft. It's got some alpaca in it. The DK, the tweed DK that I got from Knit Picks, it has some alpaca in it. So it may have more give than normally you would have with just a wool blend. So I'm thinking that might be on my side as well. But no, I'm quite happy with the way it turned out. It's a beautiful pattern. If you do get a chance and you want to make a lovely pattern, this one is great, because you get to practice your lace knitting, and also if you find that challenging, there's not as much of it as might be in a regular lace type of sweater. So you have a bit of stint with it, but then you get to do some stockinette stitch as well. So yeah, I quite like that. And I hear it's going to be quite warm at Rhinebeck, so I might just wear a t-shirt underneath it, or I suppose I could wear it with nothing underneath it too. I think it's going to be 70 degrees there in Fahrenheit, and yeah, that would be quite warm for any sweaters. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I do see a lot of people making projects for Rhinebeck, and I noticed there are a lot of worsted weight sweaters, so I'm really hoping that the weatherman is wrong, because it would be lovely to see all those beautiful sweaters walking along at Rhinebeck. Now, the other project that I finished was not a knitting project, but a sewing one. And if you follow me on Instagram, you might know that I'm quite interested in botanical dyeing, and have been trying to collect plants just on my own property to dye different swaths of fabric. And I had acquired some raw silk a while ago, which was a steal, really, because raw silk can be quite pricey, but I think I got it for a song. And so because silk really takes up the color of any dye quite well, I thought, well, that would be a good one to experiment with. So I dyed up some panels of this raw silk and ended up putting those panels into a skirt. So if you've seen it on Instagram, you might not have had a good view of it, but I'll show it to you here. Excuse me, the reaching. So here's the skirt, and basically I've just done an elasticized waist, but this basically, it's a long skirt. And I guess the reason for that is because I enjoyed so much the different flower patterns in the silk that I didn't really want to cut it off anywhere. I don't usually wear long skirts, but it could look quite formal. Someone said, oh, that would be a lovely piece to wear, at a formal kind of thing. And so yeah, I thought that I would. And I actually, at Rhinebeck in a previous year, I bought these buttons, which quite intrigued me. I think they're antique buttons. They're not all the same, which was lovely for this project, because it is a bit kind of bohemian in that way, not uniform. And yeah, they're just a sort of lovely kind of natural colored button. So yeah, that's how it turned out, and that's the back. Hopefully someone looking at it doesn't think that I've just got a stained skirt on. That would be funny. But and I made this shawl. I think I showed this to you before on my last podcast, but this kind of goes very well with it. So I was thinking I could wear the two together maybe sometime. If the weather keeps on warming up the way it is, I may wear these summer colors and be quite appropriate. So that's lots of fun. Now, the other thing that I made, I'm hoping that the person who I'm going to be gifting it to won't see it. I'm pretty sure she won't be watching podcasts at this point in time, but I just thought I would show it to you. It reminded me of her. I won't name her at the moment, but maybe you'll guess if you see it. But I made this bag. It's like a Norwegian pattern, but it's on the fabric. And so it's like a big bag that you could carry. You could carry wool in or shopping. I lined it, and I put a pocket inside as well. So I hope that she really enjoys it. It's hard to know what people's taste is, but I thought it kind of does look a little bit like a knitted sweater. When I saw the fabric, I couldn't resist, and it made me think of her. So yeah, so I made that for her. And hopefully I'll be seeing her at Rhinebeck too, so that will be very nice. Now, what else have I been doing? Well, works in progress. I have my socks. I haven't made a lot of progress on them, but they're coming up, and I'm sure you'll recognize the yarn. Arnie and Carlos Regia yarn. And yeah, so coming up past the heel now, and I think I'll be making these for a man's foot. My daughter's boyfriend has a size 11 foot, I think. So I'm going to be doing that coming up, and hopefully I'll have enough yarn for a sock of that size. I'm pretty sure I will. I think these are quite generous, these balls of Arnie and Carlos Regia yarn. So I'm working away on that. That might be my Rhinebeck sock knitting project. We're going down on Thursday night, driving through the night. It'll take us 10 hours on the highway of driving, and so then we'll, I guess, be maybe sleeping in the car because we don't have our Airbnb until the Friday night. And then we hope to go to the trunk show in Kingston before the Rhinebeck Festival. And yeah, I'll be there till Monday. So it should be so much fun. Now, when I go, I'm thinking of a few projects that I've begun and I've been thinking about. And as I heard someone else who was a podcaster say, if I don't have some sort of plan, I'll probably run amok and go a little crazy. So I've tried that before. It doesn't sometimes work. You know, the fumes kind of take you over and you make purchases that you didn't know that you were going to make. But I don't know that that's a bad thing, you know. We could be doing other bad things with our money. So this isn't the worst it could be. So I think, as I showed you before, I had this Briggs & Little yarn. I've got about 10 balls of this very rustic yarn. It's about a DK weight, but a neutral color. And I'd been admiring, and you probably have seen the Swan Show. The Swan Show, well, it's like a sweater, but also like a poncho. If you look it up, it's by Caitlin Hunter, and it's just gorgeous, the colors that have been the centerpiece for that sweater. And because this is DK, I thought, well, maybe I can use this as my main color, and then during Rhinebeck, look for the complementary colors that I'll use, because it's a little bit of color work that you're doing, but of a rustic kind of yarn, I'm thinking. So that will be a good time to look for some colors that really appeal to me. Failing that, I suppose what I could do, because I've got so much of this DK weight Briggs & Little, that I could dye it to the colors that I want to, if I really wanted to. So we'll see. I might just break down and buy some more yarn that kind of suits this as the background color, and make that Swan Show. Look it up on Ravelry. It's just a beautiful pattern, and I've been looking for something that would meet the need to use this yarn up, so that will be a good one, I'm thinking. And then the other project that I was thinking of doing is this Sunset Highway sweater, and of course that's by Caitlin Hunter as well. And this is a fingering weight sweater. I have fingering weight in my stash that I can use for the darker color here. But what I'm going to be probably looking for at Rhinebeck is some lighter speckled colors. I don't know that in my stash that I have those light neutral colors that are speckled. So I might be looking for a sweater's quantity in that colorway that might appeal to me. So that's another thing that I'll be looking for. That sock and this sweater might be the things that I am working on for the trip. This is a sweater that I had started quite a while back, and it's actually the Ramona Cardigan. So it's fairly straightforward knit, I'm thinking, and I probably will try to finish this, not finish it, but be working on it on the car ride down, because I don't think it'll take a lot of concentration to follow some of the instructions. And I've really just begun this in this sort of teal color, and it's quite a thick yarn. I wouldn't say it's Aran, but I think it's more like a worsted weight. Just thinking, what does the gauge is 15 stitches and 22 rows, yeah, and 4 inches. So it's quite a thick yarn, and it'll probably knit up quite easily. So I think I'm on gauge, and yeah, I've just got the neckline and the shoulders coming up here, so that'll be a project that I can start doing. And I think I might invest in some worsted weight yarns. If I buy any, it might be worsted weight that I concentrate on, because recently I've had a few disappointments. Well, you know, it's not really something that's dead and buried, as they say, because I have been working away, as you know, on, I probably showed many times how I've made my I made use of the yarn that I picked up in Scotland when I went to the Edinburgh Sheep and Wool Festival, and I got this beautiful North Ronaldsay fingering weight yarn there, and I had begun making what I thought was going to be a Kate Davies design, and I don't know if I'm befuddled or what, but I started a sweater in the book that actually didn't really match the yarn that I was trying to use. I don't know what was wrong with me, but anyway, I started the wrong sweater. Then I decided, oh, the gauge, even though I was making a larger size to accommodate the fact that I wasn't on gauge, for whatever reason, I decided that wasn't going to work. So then I changed the pattern that I was using in here and tried to be more adaptive to this pattern here on the cover, which is a famous one. A lot of people have knit it, and it's the Cockatoo Sweater. So I had all my colors for it. I even chose buttons that I was going to use, and she actually doesn't use buttonholes for this particular sweater. She uses snaps on the button band, but I came across these beautiful buttons that I thought might really look nice on this wool. So I got the buttons and plan to do, I guess, buttonholes, because those are shanked buttons, and was merrily knitting along. I joined the sleeves to the body and coming up to the yoke and the decreases and so on. Then I had a sinking feeling as though it was just too many stitches on the needle. Maybe I changed needles, I don't know. It just was one of those things. Anyway, I got up and realized, oh, I took it off the needles, put it on some dental floss, because I had heard that's a good strong thing to put on your sweater if you're trying to fit it on yourself, want to take it off the needles. I don't know what kind of dental floss I was using, but it broke. And so it was just one nightmare after another. Then I realized this sweater is going to fit a linebacker. So that was a fail. So I ripped it back, angrily ripped it back, which, you know, temper will never serve you, as my mother used to say. But this is going to be very difficult to pick up because these stitches are very fine and the yarn is not consistently spun. So it has a lovely appearance when it's spun, when it's knitted up, but trying to rip back and catch the stitches for a sweater like this, yeah, I'm going to have to take a strong drink and try to figure out how I can pick up all these stitches without dropping half of them, to get back to where I need to be. So that might sort of be living in a drawer for a time until I feel like I can meet the challenge to get it done. And so that might have to be on hold for a bit. I know you probably have all had fails, but it was funny how it affected me. It was like, I don't know, it just really, I felt like my ego, my knitting ego had taken a bashing, and almost was scary, because here I'm going to the Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Festival and I wanted to have my energy quite high, but when that happened, I just sort of felt, oh, what am I even thinking? I'm such a terrible knitter. So today I feel brighter. The sun is out, and I'm even looking at other patterns that I could soothe my sorrows with. I had bought a magazine a while back, this Interweave Knits, magazine, and it's actually from 2008. But I liked this sweater that was in the magazine, and it's actually quite a heavy yarn that's used, worsted weight. So I was looking at my stash and thinking I might try this color. Not sure if it suits me. Let me know if you think it suits me, but I was thinking of maybe making that sweater in that yarn, because it seems like it would be an easier knit, and it's quite figure hugging, but I've been trying to drop a few pounds lately, so I think it'll work out fine. Yeah, so I hope that you're all having a very good week. If I do see you at Rhinebeck, please say hello. I have some bits and bobs for people if they do approach me, or if I see someone that I have recognized on some of the podcasts. And so I've made some little things. I have some shawl pins, as I had at the Edinburgh Festival, but I also have some other things that I've made to give you a little treat if I see you. And yeah, so I hope that you have a very good week, and that you and yours are safe, and enjoy your knitting. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.